Something extraordinary happened in the Middle East today. Within less than 24 hours, Iran launched 3 massive waves of missile strikes across the region. Not isolated launches, not symbolic attacks, but a coordinated barrage involving some of the most powerful weapons in Iran's arsenal. Targets stretched from Israeli cities to American military installations in the Gulf. And for the first time since this war began, Iran used nearly every major missile class it possesses in a single day. Air raid sirens echoed across Israeli cities. Residents rushed into shelters. Explosions lit up the night sky. Dozens were injured as interceptor systems scrambled to stop incoming warheads. But this was not simply about damage. This was about messaging. Because these strikes came just hours after troubling reports began circulating about Iran's newly appointed supreme leader, a man who had taken power only days earlier. According to multiple sources, he had been injured during the opening phase of the war and had not appeared publicly since his appointment. And yet, despite his absence, the response from Iran's military was immediate and overwhelming. What followed may reveal far more about the direction of this conflict than the missiles themselves. The first strike wave began shortly after Iranian state television broadcast a statement attributed to the country's new leader. Moments later, missiles were already in the air. The operation carried a symbolic motto translating roughly to "at your service." For Iran's Revolutionary Guard, the phrase carried a deeper meaning. It signaled loyalty, not just to the country, but specifically to the new leader whose authority had barely been established. The strikes targeted key areas across Israel, as well as facilities linked to the United States military presence in the Persian Gulf. Ballistic missiles launched alongside explosive drones in a synchronized attack package designed to stress regional defense systems. Yet the second wave of strikes revealed an even more dramatic escalation: the shift in firepower. When the next barrage arrived, the operation carried a new name. This phase was described as a campaign of severe punishment. It was dedicated to Iranian military commanders who had been killed during earlier stages of the war. And the weapons used in this wave were notably different. Instead of relying primarily on large numbers of smaller projectiles, Iran introduced some of its heaviest ballistic systems. Among them were medium-range missiles capable of carrying extremely large warheads, some weighing close to 2 tons. Traveling at speeds exceeding Mach 15 during their final descent, these missiles present a major challenge even for advanced interception systems. Several other missile types were also launched during the strikes, including models designed to adjust their trajectory in the final moments before impact. That ability allows them to correct course mid-flight, making interception significantly more difficult. Targets expanded to include American military facilities in the Gulf region, as well as infrastructure within Israeli territory. Then came the third wave, a strike across the entire length of Israel. By the time the third barrage was launched, it had become clear that the strikes were not random. Missiles were landing in locations stretching from southern Israel to cities in the far north. Major ports, border regions, and urban areas all came under alert. For the first time in the campaign, Iranian strikes covered nearly the entire geographic length of the country in a single day. Defense systems, such as Iron Dome and David's Sling, were activated repeatedly as incoming threats were detected. Explosions were reported across several regions as interceptor missiles attempted to neutralize incoming warheads. The scale of the attack was significant. But what truly caught the attention of military analysts was not the number of missiles launched. It was their size. Iran's new missile strategy. Earlier phases of the conflict had relied heavily on volume. Large numbers of missiles and drones were launched simultaneously to overwhelm defensive systems. But recent attacks suggest Iran has shifted its approach. Instead of saturating defenses with quantity, the focus has moved toward fewer launches carrying far heavier payloads. In simple terms, fewer missiles are being fired, but each one is designed to cause far more damage. Some analysts believe this change reflects a deliberate strategy. Heavy warheads create a unique challenge for missile defense systems. Even if interception is successful, the debris from such large weapons can still pose serious risks. The goal may no longer be simply overwhelming defenses. It may be forcing them to confront physical limits. The war inside Iran. While Iran's missiles were flying outward, another massive campaign was unfolding in the opposite direction. American and Israeli forces had already carried out thousands of strikes inside Iranian territory. Military installations, missile sites, and naval vessels were among the reported targets. Several key facilities associated with weapons development were also attacked using some of the most powerful conventional weapons available. Stealth bombers deployed bunker-penetrating bombs designed to destroy hardened underground infrastructure. Naval assets and aircraft at military airfields were also targeted. Within days, dozens of Iranian vessels and numerous military installations had reportedly been damaged or destroyed. By many measures, the scale of the air campaign was unprecedented in the region. Yet despite this pressure, Iran's missile capability has not disappeared. Instead, it appears to be evolving. A decline in launch numbers. Interestingly, the number of missiles Iran launches each day has actually declined since the first days of the war. Early in the conflict, hundreds of projectiles were reportedly fired daily. Recent estimates suggest that figure has dropped dramatically. At first glance, this might suggest Iran is running out of weapons. But the appearance can be misleading, because as launch numbers decreased, the destructive power of each individual strike increased. In other words, fewer missiles, but far heavier ones. This pattern suggests something important. Iran may not be exhausting its arsenal. It may be conserving it, preparing for a conflict that could last far longer than many initially expected. The leader behind the war. At the center of all these developments is Iran's new supreme leader. His rise to power came suddenly after the death of his predecessor during the early phase of the conflict. The leadership transition happened quickly, with the country's clerical council selecting him only days later. But since that appointment, he has remained largely out of public view. No live appearance, no televised address, only a written message delivered through state media. That message contained one clear directive. The strategic pressure on global energy routes must continue. And the country, he said, would not abandon its mission to avenge those killed during the war. A conflict without an exit. Today, the region finds itself in an increasingly dangerous position. Military strikes continue. Missiles and drones cross borders. Allies on both sides are becoming involved. Hezbollah forces in Lebanon have opened a northern front against Israel. Air defenses across the Gulf remain on high alert. And oil markets around the world are reacting to every new development. Yet, despite the intensity of the fighting, one thing remains strikingly absent: a clear plan for how the conflict might end. There is no formal negotiation underway, no ceasefire framework, no mediator publicly accepted by both sides. Instead, the war continues to expand. The question no one is answering. At this moment, the Middle East stands at a crossroads. Iran has demonstrated that it can disrupt global energy markets while continuing to launch heavy missile strikes. The United States and Israel have shown they can strike deep inside Iranian territory with overwhelming force. Both sides possess powerful leverage. Both sides appear determined to use it. Which raises the most important question of all. Not who is winning the war, but whether anyone involved has a realistic strategy for what comes next. Because wars often begin with clear objectives, but they rarely unfold exactly as expected. And when two powerful adversaries continue escalating without a shared path toward resolution, history shows the consequences can spread far beyond the battlefield.